Welcome back to Sports Cards and a Cup of Joe. This is your host, Joe Davis. And before I dig into today's episode, which is a topic I've been wanting to share with you for a while, but before we dig into that, I just wanted to offer my condolences, my prayers to the Charlie Kirk family, to Erica and their two children over the tragic shooting in Utah last Wednesday. My last episode was previously recorded as I was away at a trade show Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But today I wanted to share that, and I am praying for their family. I'm praying for the entire team at Turning Point USA, and praying for our country over the division that is obvious over these events. And Charlie Kirk was such a passionate individual who taught others to love country and to understand why they should love their country, and fought for principles that I believe in. And he passionately loved his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And he also taught others how much God loved them. And so it's a very sad time in our country over these events. But I ask you too to be praying for each of them. And on my other show, the Joe Davis Show, which will be airing tomorrow, I'll be sharing some scripture and other thoughts and commentary on this, and something that I believe scripture shows us about this event. And so I hope you will join me there. But today we're going to be talking about Mickey versus Mickey. I've wanted to do this episode for a while. Mickey versus Mickey, and that is Mickey Mouse versus Mickey Mantle. And what I mean is we're going to look at some data. We're going to look at some grading reports. We're going to look at some sales reports. And I'm going to use these two characters, and I might say these two beloved characters, and we're going to look at opportunities in the trading card space when you look at both of these. And we're going to talk about things like global name recognition, because in the world we live in now, you can't just say what card is hot in the U.S. You need to look at globally who is their demand for, and so forth. We're going to dig into that. And so when I, as a trading card dealer, buy and sell, I do a lot of research and I look for opportunities. And often when I'm asked about the launch of the new brand, one of the things I'm asked is, why are you spending time on that? Because one of the reasons is not only do I love characters and cartoons and stuff like that, but I believe there's actual opportunities there. Maybe not next month, maybe not in 6 months, but I believe there are long-term opportunities there. And I base that upon several factors, such as I focus on brands that have global recognition. I focus on characters that are highly collected in other areas, not just in trading cards. And I also look for things where there is scarcity, where there either are not many cards printed or there are not many cards graded. In most cases, both. So I'm going to show you some comparisons today, but let's start with that global name recognition I talked about. And so many of you might use ChatGPT for research to look up, historical data. And be careful, as it even tells you, double check your sources. But this was pretty generic information. So I asked ChatGPT about what is the global name recognition for Mickey Mantle, because those of us in the hobby know that Mantle is the gold standard for collectors when it comes to vintage sports cards. He is the most collected, most sought-after player among all sports for collectors in the sports card trading card space. So here's some facts it told me about Mantle. It says Mantle is a legend, one of the most iconic figures in Major League Baseball. He's synonymous with greatness in American sports, comparable to names like Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, or Willie Mays. But then it says globally. Outside the U.S., his name recognition drops off significantly compared to global sports icons like Michael Jordan, Pele, or Muhammad Ali. In countries where baseball is less popular, such as much of Europe and Africa, his name is mostly unfamiliar to the general public. In Japan, Latin America, and parts of East Asia, regions with strong baseball cultures, his name carries more weight, but still skews toward older generations or hardcore fans. It says, in summary, Mickey Mantle is globally recognized within the context of baseball and American sports history, but he's not a household name worldwide in the way that some other athletes are. His recognition is highly respected but limited in scope, and it continues to fade somewhat as newer generations emerge, especially outside North America. And again, the reason I used Mickey Mantle for this comparison is we're looking at vintage cards today. We're looking at cards that were released in the 50s when it comes to Mantle, and we're going to be comparing that to some cards of Mickey Mouse that are also vintage cards. But now let's talk about global name recognition for Mickey Mouse, because in the world we live in, you can't just focus on what demand is there for an athlete or a card in the U.S. Let's think globally here. Here's what ChatGPT said about Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is one of the most globally recognized characters of all time. Now catch this phrase. Unlike Mickey Mantle, famous primarily in the U.S. and within baseball, Mickey Mouse transcends national, linguistic, and cultural boundaries. His name and image are as close to universally known as any fictional creation ever has been. And so when you ask other questions and you use other ways to look at this about the most recognized cartoon characters worldwide, Mickey Mouse always lands at the top of the list, followed by Snoopy, Bugs Bunny, and others. And we can talk about that list later. But today for our focus, Mickey versus Mickey, there's a little bit of a snapshot of looking at global name recognition here in 2025. Global name recognition, Mickey Mouse wins hands down, right? Okay, now we're going to go back in time 70 years. 1955. And the reason I chose that year is both Mickey and Mickey Mantle and Mickey Mouse, both had other cards before that. And we're going to look at older ones on them. But I wanted a straight line comparison of cards released in the same calendar year, both 70 years old. And we're going to look at some statistics about those two cards. And I'm using this pretty, some might say, silly comparison, because I know some of you were saying, Joe, you're comparing apples and oranges here, or you may literally be comparing apples to chocolate cake, as you know, this is just not the same kind of way to analyze. But for this episode, this is what we're doing. But I'm using this to help you understand a way to analyze values of cards, relative values of cards, by looking at things like how many cards are actually on the market, how many are actually out there that have been graded of a given card. And those tools are easily accessible. You can go on psacard.com, for example, and use their population report, which will tell you how many have been graded of a given card and how many have been graded in each grade as well. So today we're just focused mainly on big picture, as in how many have been graded as reported by PSA. Now you can also look this up for BGS, you can look this up for SGC, and so forth. And so you could spend time looking at each of these cards across different grading companies and how many are out there and how many are in different grades if you're doing a deep dive into research on a given card. For today's example, for today's comparison, we're just looking at PSA. So here we go. 1955 Mickey Mantle and 1955 Mickey Mouse. Many of you were saying, I didn't even know Mickey Mouse had a card back then. So let's start with the one you do know. 1955 Bowman Mickey Mantle. You see, Mantle didn't have a card in the 55 top set. I know, what a loss. But he did not have one that year. 1955 Bowman Mickey Mantle. And we're going to look at just a collector grade, just an entry level. You just want to own one. You don't want to break the bank. 1955 Bowman Mickey Mantle PSA 2. Average sale price. They vary. You can find some a little less than this, some a little more on recent auctions, but basically let's call it $600. Average price around $600 on a very, very low grade PSA 2 55 Bowman Mickey Mantle. Obviously, it can be exponentially more, tens of thousands in high grade and more. But again, we're just talking, hey, I just want to own one. I don't have a lot of money, or I don't want to spend a lot of money. PSA 2, that's cool. I'll buy me a Mantle. $600. Now, looking at the pop report for all grades on that card, right now PSA is showing there are 5,374 total on these ever graded. 5,374. Not a lot, honestly, when you think about the demand for Mantle trading cards. And there's only a little over 5,000 ever graded on that card. Not a lot. Okay, let's compare. 1955 Barrett Mickey Mouse. Barrett's a UK release. There were no US releases on Mickey Mouse that year. And another important fact about that year, 1955, what happened with Mickey that year? Well, Mickey got a new home that year, and that would be in Disneyland. Yes, that's the year Disneyland opened to the world, the first of many, long before Disney World opened. And if you've never been to Disneyland, it is quite iconic. I've been there a few times and love every visit there. But that's the year it opened, 1955. So perfect year to study a card about Mickey Mouse, right? Okay, 1955 Barrett Mickey Mouse, card number 5, in a PSA 2, roughly sells for about $150. Okay, so you're saying, not a big deal, right? Okay, of course Mickey Mouse is cheaper than Mickey Mantle. Mantle, about $600 in a PSA 2. Mickey Mouse in PSA 2, same year, about $150. So the Mantle's about 4 times as valuable. Here's where a lot of light bulbs go off when I share these kind of comparisons with collectors, and they go, oh, I get it. Wow, that's ridiculous. What did we say? 55 Bowman Mickey Mantle, PSA 2, told you the value, $600. And in total, 5,374 Mantles graded by PSA in all grades. 1955 Mickey Mouse from Barrett, 43 total ever graded. 43. Less than 1% as many as Mickey Mantle from the same year. 43. Over 100 times as many graded on Mantle as there are Mickey Mouse. So you think that $150 might be a decent buy. Now, it's not like you can just go out there and browse through dozens of them because, like I said, there's only been 43 ever graded. Okay, let's go back in time a little and talk about rookie cards. Or in this case, you can argue with me. I'm going to use the 52 Mantle since it's the most iconic trading card in the history of trading cards. And no, it's not technically a rookie, but it is his first Topps card because he did have a 51 Bowman card, which is also incredibly expensive. And if you're interested in one, I will give you a sales pitch on this. We currently have one available on the Got Baseball Cards eBay store right now that you can bid on. So it's a PSA 3.5, and I believe we have it listed somewhere in the low to mid 20,000 range. I don't remember exactly what it's at, but you can hop on our eBay, search for Seller Got Baseball Cards, and you'll find it. It's a PSA 3.5. But for today's comparison, we're just going to use super entry level. We're talking PSA 1s. PSA 1, 52 Topps, Mickey Mantle. I was offered 2 of these at the National. And honestly, in hindsight, I probably should have bought one because I didn't realize how strong some of the PSA 1s are selling for, as one just sold for $37,500. But they'll typically range from the high 20s to the high 30s. So let's just say ballpark recently, 28,000 to 38,000, somewhere in that range. It's going to vary a lot with eye appeal. Is the corner, the corners, the edges, the surface, mainly the eye appeal. You can have a card with a crease, but if the eye appeal is still really good, or you can have one where the surface is very scuffed up and the eye appeal is not very good, and that one's probably going to sell for less. So eye appeal matters. That's why you can literally see a $10,000 difference on a PSA 1, all because of how it looks. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? So depending on how that looks to you versus how it looks to someone else. So 52 Topps Mickey Mantle PSA 1, like I said, 28,000 to 38,000 ballpark range. Total population report on this card, much lower than the 55 Bowman Mantle. Currently, PSA is showing 2,057 of these ever graded. 2,057 ever graded, with millions of collectors who would love to own one. 2,057. All right, let's compare. You can't really do a straight line comparison because the Mickey Mouse card, his first cards, he had a lot of cards released in the 30s, but a number of vintage collectors I've spoken with say they treat the Spanish release, it was called the 1929/30, the way it's most considered released over that time period, 1929 to 30, Juncosa set. Mickey Mouse had a set of cards, oversized cards, and there were 15 different cards in the set. So many consider card number 1, if you will, the true, quote, first appearance card. In non-sports, we don't really call them rookies. We call them first appearance, kind of like, their first appearance in a comic book. It's their first appearance on a trading card. So the 1929/30 Juncosa Mickey Mouse set, 15 different cards in the set. And in total right now, there's only 146 cards graded by PSA. 146. So that's an average of about 9 of each card ever graded. So I looked for average sales lately, and I found a 2.5 of card number 2 just sold for $365. And the pop report on that particular card actually is 9. Now, again, card number 1 brings a significant premium, but others in the set will typically range from about $300 to $500, and you typically only see these in low grade. Like I think I only own 2 of these, and I think the highest I have is a 2. They're very hard to get in high grade. It's a fairly thin stock. It's oversized. It's nearly 100 years old. So Typically, you'll see these in the $300 to $500 range in low grade. And again, there's an average of about 9 of each graded. And again, card number 1 brings a big premium. But again, I'm talking about collectability, investment, having fun with the hobby, not breaking the bank. So you can literally own a card of Mickey Mouse from his first set in that $300 to $500 range. And the pop report's going to be probably 10 or less total graded. That is, let's compare it to Mickey Mantle now. That is 1/100th. Let's say the Mickey Mantle's 30,000 and these are about 300. That's 1/100th the price of a 52 tops mantle. And yet there's 0.5% as many graded on any given card. 0.5% as many graded. So when you talk about data, those are some staggering comparisons. Yes, 2,057 graded on a Mickey Mantle is very, very minimal in this hobby when there is so much demand for that card. But how much global demand is there for Mickey Mouse? Mickey Mouse merchandise. I don't know the exact number, but my guess would be that there are hundreds of millions or billions, likely billions of dollars spent every year on Mickey Mouse merchandise. And yet, there are trading cards that are nearly 100 years old from his first set that are ridiculously scarce, that you can buy for pennies on the dollar compared to other iconic names such as Mantle, Mays, Aaron, you name it. Name any big ball player from the 50s and you can buy the Mickey Mouse cards for pennies on the dollar. So hopefully this gives you a little snapshot into Joe's brain when it comes to some of this iconic character trading card data that I look at, because as I've shared on previous episodes, not just with Mickey Mouse, but there are many, many cards I've been buying, some to keep, some for inventory. Many, many cards I've been buying of Disney characters far beyond Mickey Mouse, other iconic Disney characters who first appeared back in the day, 30s, 40s, 50s time period. Cards of Snoopy, cards of Bugs Bunny, cards of Fred Flintstone, cards of Scooby-Doo, cards of Yogi Bear, countless other iconic characters. And I could do these same kinds of episodes over and over, showing you there are very few out there on most of them. There are very few ever graded, and the pricing right now is really, really affordable in most cases. Now, there are certain cards there's a lot of demand for. I was at a show this weekend, and I was just speaking to another vendor about the 1935 Gum Incorporated Mickey Mouse set, of which you can buy. They're really funny cards. You can buy low grades on those for $50, $50 to $100, let's say. But there are some high numbers. That's right, Topps did not invent high numbers. There were high numbers on the Mickey Mouse cards made by Gum Incorporated in 1935, which are super scarce, and they bring a huge premium over the base cards. But so there are certain areas where you're going to pay a premium for the other cards. But again, I'm not trying to sales pitch you on any of this. I'm trying to use this as an example to show you that data is available to you as a collector. You might say, Joe, I only want to collect sports cards, and that's totally fine. I mean, that is the name of this show, Sports Cards and a Cup of Joe. But maybe you want to compare Mickey Mantle cards to Willie Mays cards, and you can do the same thing. You might want to compare the 52 Topps Mantle to the 52 Topps Mays. Now, I can tell you there's a lot more Willie Mays out there because it was not a high number. And I haven't even looked it up, but I can tell you there are going to be a lot more Willie Mays cards out there on the market graded. But you can go to psacard.com, under their research tools, look at the population report. And you can look up a player, you can look up a specific set, you can look at comparisons within a set. Like if you're a 52 Topps collector, you can scroll through that and look at how many have been graded on any given card and how many have been graded within each grade for each card. So if you're looking to build a PSA 8 set of 52 Topps, first of all, I hope you've got a lot of money in the bank because that is going to set you back quite a bit. But maybe you're working on a PSA 1 set, whatever. You can use those same tools. So again, I've compared apples and oranges, as some of you will probably say, and I've used it to show you what I believe is a huge opportunity. It is for me as a collector anyway, because I buy up a lot of this stuff with low population reports, and I can buy a lot of this stuff very affordably, and I can enjoy it and go with my friends. I can go, well, check this out. There's only 4 of these ever graded, or there's only 1 of these ever graded, and so that's fun for me. But you can do the same thing no matter what you collect, whether it's sports, non-sports, anything in between. I will warn you, if you're a Pokemon collector, you might be a little, I will say, be afraid, be very afraid, because when you look at the population report on many Pokemon cards, it has blown up so much lately. I could give you another comparison. If you want to just compare characters to characters, the Van Gogh Pikachu card, promotional card, continues to go up. I think the last sales report I saw on that is about $1,800 the last time I looked it up. That some had sold that recently, and there are a massive amount of those. The last time I checked, there were something like 40,000 PSA 10s on that card. Don't quote me exactly because the numbers change, but I didn't look it up for this episode. But when I see that, I go, I'm going to stay away from that. There's 40,000 of those out there. Any card out there that there's 40,000 PSA 10s, even if it's still going up, I would say be very careful, because if demand shifts, if suddenly Pokemon cools off, which it doesn't appear to be ever cooling off anymore because there is such global demand for those cards. But my point is, just like Mickey Mouse and other characters, the demand is not based upon on-field performance, either now or in the past. So if demand ever turns, suddenly there's a massive supply out there. So when there's that many of a card graded, it's all the sales are contingent on how much demand is there. And so be careful if you're chasing cards with a population that big. Again, we're talking 52 Mickey Mantle, only about 2,000 ever graded in any grade. Some of these Mickey Mouse cards, only about 10 of each ever graded in any grade. So, hope this statistical data analysis of Mickey versus Mickey has opened your eyes. maybe it's made you say, wow, maybe I'd like to buy some non-sport cards now, some cool character cards. But that's not the purpose of the episode. The purpose is to help you understand how to use these tools, to show you there can be vast discrepancies out there. And to me, that can often mean vast opportunities to take advantage of. So hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully this will be helpful to you. Hope you've enjoyed this, and hope you will be back for our next episode. I have no clue what we're going to talk about, but it will be something related to trading cards. How's that? So I can promise that. So hope you have a great week, everyone, whether you love Mickey Mantle, Mickey Mouse, or any character or iconic figure in between. Remember today that Jesus loves you. Remember that I think you are awesome too, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great week.